Locked and loaded.
Hi everyone out there. Welcome to
We're Locked
and Loaded. We are definitely loaded for today's episode. Today's episode is really more about clinicians and parents understanding secrets that will help navigate you guys through this summer or any summer. Understanding some nuances, because we know parents, you spend a lot more time with your kids or other caregivers during this time because they don't have school. So it's almost like Saturday and Sunday every day. So I want to give you guys some techniques, some strategies on to try to have a really great quality summer.
All right, so before we dive into all of those nuances, we wanted to let everyone know that BAT, we are an ACE provider, a continuing education.
What's an ACE provider, Dr.
We're approved as a continuing education provider through the boards, the BCBA board. So if you are a BCBA, you have to have 32 units every 2 years for continuing education, and that's part of your ongoing training. We want to make sure people aren't just being stagnant, but they want to make sure they're learning as well. So every 2 years, the BCBAs have to get these CEUs through conferences, podcasts, literature, things like that, so there is continuing education.
Nice. So it's also pretty awesome that, behavioral autism therapy provide this, not just for their own clinicians, but for any clinicians out there that is seeking to learn new strategies, something different from other professionals. Dr. Lee and myself have been in the industry for a long time, not to date ourselves, right, Dr. Lee? But I think ultimately that's what we want to provide. Our community is very small, and we're always searching for ways to get CE units or get even supervision hours. And this can even match for those that are seeking supervision hours. But guess who also benefits from this, Dr. Lee? Not just the clinicians, but the parents. Because they really get true clinical insight that sometimes is hard to navigate on the internet or somewhere to find. So we're saying at the comfort of your own home, lock in.
All right, so
lock in.
if you're a BCBA, this presentation is eligible to receive CE units. So we want to make sure that you are online the whole time. And at the end, we'll give a secret passcode that you'll have to enter. And email me your certification number and that secret password in order to get that CE.
Nice. So again, you can either DM on your email and the information here on our particular platform. And then that again is a permanent product. So we can know that this is the answer, the email, so everything is literally data driven. We can use this to show proof that you legitimately got your CE.
So there's a sign-in process for that, but in terms of this live podcast here, if you're there online, we can see when you logged in, and then we can also see when you logged off. So
That's right. So again, today's conversation is geared for our clinicians and our parents, and it's about secrets of autism. So these secrets, Dr. Lee, why do we say they're secrets?
They're secrets because not a lot of people know about that. I think there's some strategies that people aren't aware of, and we want to make sure that we're providing these secrets to our audience.
And that is so right. And also, I believe some of these things that we talk about, you cannot see them. So when you can't see a headache, or when you can't see the smell of the food or aroma, you are blinded to if that can actually be a trigger to a behavior.
But a lot of times when we're talking about ABA, we're talking about observable, measurable behaviors. But sometimes there are some behaviors that we can't see. And how do we know that they're there if we can't see it, right?
That's
the headaches, the stomach aches, especially when our kids are nonverbal or non-vocal, they can't tell us. So how do we know? How do we deal with those issues?
And that's where we want to make sure that parents, professionals are able to see all those things and that we can have a conversation. So these are things that over the years, myself, Dr. Lee have said, you know what, I know that these clinicians can't see aroma. So these are some 4 areas, and you'll get a chance to follow along with us. As you guys see behind us, we're kind of connected to a backdrop today that allows for us to follow along with this PowerPoint. So that's pretty awesome.
Right, so the first thing we're talking about today is picky eating.
Yes.
A lot of times, our parents will always say, well, the kids don't like to eat the food because they don't like the texture. But that may not always be the case. And usually not always the case as well.
And then this is what I tell people, like they say it's texture, but how do you know it's texture when the kid never put it in his mouth? Never wants to even like have no parts to it. Like when they smell it or they get close to it, they push it away. So how can we say it's texture when the kid is not even trying? Now, if the kid tried it, spit it out, now maybe we can say the behavior of spitting out is, oh, that texture or whatnot, right?
But before you even put it in your mouth, what is the first thing that you sense? It's not the texture of the food, it's what?
The smell, right? I think most people think like, all right, I'm ready. They're gonna go in and they think that the first thing that their sense mechanisms are picking up is the taste. But the reality is it's the smell. It goes into our nose prior to it going into our mouth.
And even, we haven't really talked about that, even the appearance of the food. If it doesn't look good, I don't know if I want to even get it near me, right?
That's right, so that's a visual piece. So when we're looking at food, people may think it's just taste, but it's visual, it's smell, which is our olfactory. And we want to talk about that a little bit because I think with the olfactory and the different smell mechanisms, I don't know if our clinicians really understand. So I'm gonna ask our audience out here. Tell me one person that's out there in our world, in our right now, our producer Jaya.
One person
That's logged in. We're just gonna call them out and ask them this question.
Seraphine.
All right, we got Seraphine. We got a person out there. How many smell mechanisms do you believe the human body has, or humans have? Just put the answer out there in the chat. What do you think he said, Jaya?
Haven't got a response yet, so.
Okay.
The other one that's watching, if you want to ask that question again, we have Special Needs Coffee.
All right, Special Needs Coffee. Welcome. Can you guys answer how many smell mechanisms do you think we have in our bodies?
Seraphine said 2.
Seraphine says 2.
I guess my nose will smell. How else can I smell food?
So you're saying we have 2? So Seraphine, we have 1 in our nose, right? We smell with our nose. What else do we smell with? If you're saying 2.
And Special Needs Coffee said 350 to 400 smell receptors.
Oh, so we got 300,000 or so smell receptors coming from Special Needs Coffee. Anyone else out there thinking, any parent, is Seraphine, Special Needs Coffee, are they right? Or is it just one smell mechanism? What do we have out there?
Seraphine just said, didn't understand the question. LOL, sorry.
No, he's okay. He's okay because we don't know if he's right or wrong. Maybe he's right. But I'm curious to know what others are saying. So as we continue, please put it out there if you think it's more than one. But this is where it is. Your sense of smell, just like your sense of taste, is part of your chemosensory system or your chemical senses. This allows for your smell to specialize in sensory cells called olfactory, and that's what we talked about earlier. So each olfactory has an odor receptor, microreceptors, molecules released by these substances around us. So let's look at that. That's what this will look like, right, Dr. Lee?
Yeah. So I have this first image here. There's a flower, and through your nose you can smell the aroma of the flower, right? But as you look at this second image here, there is another mechanism where you can detect smell.
Oh, wow. So before we go into there, let's talk about it. So it says once the neuron detects the molecules, they send a message to your brain, which identifies the smell, just like what you said with the flower, right? You put the flower, it smells, and your brain says, that's a flower, right? So if we did a little study and said, okay, we blindfolded you, you smelled it, you may be able to identify, oh, that's a fish, right? Or that's hot Cheetos, or whatever it may be, right? So that's our typical one, right? So that's how we typically smell, but guess what it says here? There's also a second pathway. That is interesting, Dr. Lee. So, Dr. Lee, share with us where the second pathway may come from.
The back of your throat.
Back of our throat.
Right. So Seraphine was right when you identify two mechanisms in terms of smell.
So that's what it says. Dr. Lee's right.
To the nose.
So it says the second channel, the second pathway through the channel that connects through the roof of our throat to our noses. So chewing food releases aromas that accesses this olfactory sensory neurons through the second channel. And that makes sense because we've all just recently been through this whole COVID experience over like 3 or 4 years ago or whatnot. And remember, when you couldn't smell anything, you couldn't taste.
Especially when you have a cold and your nose is stuffed up, it's hard to taste that food. And then your appetite, you lose your appetite when you're sick, right? Because you're not able to smell the food.
That's right. So this area, most people may not know, is like, say hypothetically you smell a strawberry. But when you taste the small strawberry, it starts to smell different. And those are the mechanisms that really create a disconnect at times for our kids processing. So when they smell it, right, I think we looked at it eloquently right here. You smell it, it goes to our olfactory buds, and then our brain says, a flower. But then here, as you see, we have the strawberries, fish, flower, I'm not sure what that other little whoop-de-whoop is, but it goes into our mouth, and then it explodes with a taste. So I know sometimes when you guys bite into something, you'll be like, oh, this is good. This is Fuego. I love this. Or you may bite into it and you may say it's spoiled. It's old. Why? You couldn't smell it, but you can taste it because you're tasting it through your other smell mechanism.
I've seen experiments done where when somebody plugs their nose and closes their eyes, if we give them an onion to bite into it, they can't tell you if it's an onion or an apple. Like just based on plugging your nose, not even able to see it. So,
and that's interesting because an onion does not taste like an apple, Dr. Lee. But you're right. If you do plug your nose, there's a lot of experiments out there. You plug your nose, you close your eyes, and you bite into it. It has that illusion. Why? Because you hear the bite. Now your auditory kicks in. You're like, hey, that sounds like an apple. So it must be an apple. Right? So our mechanisms help our brain identify. So if we can't see it, we taste it. If we can't taste it, then we listen for it. So all these mechanisms are tied in, and it's not just hunger. It's not just my stomach or I haven't eaten. There are all these things to assure. So we want to make sure that we know that our kid with autism, these are the areas that are affected. So Dr. Lee, the hippocampus, these are the 3 areas that are affected in our brains for our kids with autism. This plays a important role in emotions, learning, and memory, right? Sometimes our kids can't learn or still struggling with learning new memories or memories. Emotions are sometimes hard for our kids. But then the amygdala. That's what we're talking about today, right, Dr. Lee?
So this part of the brain deals with aggression, eating, drinking, sexual behaviors, and we're seeing a lot of individuals with autism, their amygdala is either underdeveloped or there's missing neurons or connections there. So that's why we see these maladaptive behaviors occurring, or either some issues of eating or drinking because of that amygdala.
And that's the area that we're trying to improve on. We're trying to give new neurons, as Dr. Lee eloquently said, to be able to enhance these areas for our kids. So when you look at this area, when it goes to the brain after they're smelling it, after they're seeing it, it goes to the brain and the brain says, yes, it's good, or no, it's not, right? Just like aggression. This makes me happy or this makes me angry, right? As this controls our, plays a role in aggression and drinking and all of the like alcohol or maybe excessive drinking soda or those type of behaviors. So why are we saying all this right now? Is to get you to understand. The more you understand, the more you can be able to create strategies that affect this area, which in this area, the amygdala. Right. This part of the brain actually strengthen this by utilizing ABA strategies.
So we're trying to just reshape that brain, right? So in terms of the strategies we're using, trying to reshape the connections and pathways that haven't had that experience before.
That's right. But if you don't know what pathways we're really trying to recorrect, maybe you're thinking you're going to go to the hippocampus area. That's a different part of the brain. Different things happen in that area of the brain, right? Just like our hypothalamus. That's the area where our blood levels, glucose, blood pressure, and our hormones are affected. But these are all the areas that are affected by our kids with autism. This is the area of the brain that's a little bit underdeveloped or overdeveloped or needs more shaping. So if you are not aware of that, then we don't know what strategies and what's going to really work. We can be actually, this strategy is really good, but actually hurting the child because it's really not going to stick, right? So this is where we're at. Now, this is where we're at in this, strategies.
So if
This is
we're
our favorite
saying
part.
smell can be affecting their pickiness in terms of eating, what sort of strategy can we do in terms of eliminating that smell?
That's right. So let's talk about that because as we mentioned, smell, is a major component to what we're trying to, the taste. If you smell something that you do not like, you're not going to taste it and put it in your mouth. But if you smell something that is confusing to you, you're also not going to, right? So think about development. Kids do not eat. I want to say from the ages of 2 to 3 or 5 or 6, when kids first get introduced to a hamburger. Their hamburger of choice? Pretty plain McDonald's. You very rarely see a 3, 4, 5-year-old eating In-N-Out because it's a more complex burger. You're going to have the lettuce, the tomatoes, the spread, where McDonald's is just going to have the burger and the bun, and you tell them to take off the pickles and the onions.
Not the pickles.
I see our producers likes the pickles of the McDonald's, but it's so different in the makeup, right? And it's easy to process that when you bite into a McDonald's burger, it's just going to be bun, patty, and that's it. Right? If you bite into a In-N-Out burger, you got to process all these different things you're eating. And sometimes our kids with autism don't like that because the smells of it is also different too.
The palate hasn't developed yet as well. So just being able to have all those sensations in your mouth at one time, all the different smells, texture included with that, that's been why they're not as being so picky with the things that they're eating.
That's right, because again, palate is a development. You know, you're not going to have too many 2 to 3-year-olds being sophisticated with their palate, where they're not going to have a lot of really sophisticated foods because that's too much for them. Where us as adults, we love the Gordon Ramsays and the gourmet cooking because our palate is like, oh my God, it exploded. But for our kids, if you noticed, our kids like things separated from birth. When you look at the development of eating, we have our kids, we typically give them this first, and then something else first. We typically don't mix the foods. And then when they go to elementary school, everything is on a tray and everything is separated for them. And that's developmentally because kids don't want their corn or their greens mixed with their touching their meat because they think it's so gross, right? They think it'll change something.
And we have those cafeteria trays or
Yes.
in different sections.
And the reason why they have those cafeteria trays is for that developmental reasons of eating development, right? So for our kids with autism, we're saying, all right, when you want them to explore new foods, most of our kids eat chicken nuggets, French fries, very much what we consider finger foods, right? Why is it that they may eat finger foods? Because of smell. When you warm up a finger food from chicken nuggets or that, when it comes back to your plate, the aroma is pretty much dissipated and it's just gonna smell one way. It's not gonna have, like enchiladas, you're not gonna have to smell or process the cheese, the tortilla, the sauce, and maybe the chicken that's inside. Those are 4 things that we have to process, and for us, we're like, I'm ready. I'm ready. For a kid with autism, they may say that's too much of processing of the olfactory, and I don't want that. I just want the bland food.
So how do we get our kids to try the enchilada? All that around there with the 4 different ingredients coming out.
Perfect question, Dr. Lee. The way that we do that is that when we first send the food over, we want to have it hot so we can smell the aroma, we taste it. It's like, I'm ready. But for our kids with autism, too much to process. We put it in the refrigerator.
Cool down.
You let it cool down. When you notice the food is cooled down, it all tastes, it's kind of like the smell and everything is dissipated. We've done this approach for over 100 kids, and we're seeing a literally success in eating when you cool down the food prior.
Before they wouldn't even sit down at the table with all that smell coming out. But now, once they sit down, there's no smell. So okay, I'll give it a try.
That's right. And then at school, you don't have any smells because they're not cooking fresh food. They're warming everything up. So you'll see kids explore those foods a little bit more. You'll hear the teacher say, yeah, he tried this, he tried that, but at home, he's not trying any of it because the food is freshly cooked. And it's coming right off the pan or the skillet, just like we all assume it to be, right? But our kids, it's too much for them. But if you take their food, you put it in the refrigerator, let it cool down, and then serve it to them, we're seeing a 70% chance or higher of them trying it for the first time. The 30%, you got to keep working because they've been embedded, they've had some experiences, right? So I think we ultimately are saying, cool down your food, that if you want your kid, and perfect example, open up your windows when you're cooking too. All that aroma, we love it. It makes us salivate. But for sometimes our kids with autism, it pushes them away and they start to exhibit behaviors. We used to have kids start to exhibit behaviors when the parents start cooking, and we didn't understand why. We didn't know what was going on because we couldn't see the aroma and how that aroma was affecting the child.
I think the typical strategy in ABA for food tolerance has been escape extinction. So basically, you put the food next to the kid's mouth and you just leave it there until they take the bite. So pretty much force feed. We've seen strategies like that work sometimes, but most of the time we're seeing a lot of fighting struggling. And with this strategy, just cool it down, put it in front of them, and then have them try it. There's going to be the struggle, the fights, things like that, and we've seen success with this.
And exactly, and I'd say once we start fighting with our kids and forcing food into anyone's mouth, I'll be honest, if someone just puts something in my mouth like that for about an hour, 30 minutes, I don't like it. Now I'm making food averse. So eating becomes like a struggle, so I don't even want to come and eat. I'm learned that it's aversive versus a happy experience. So I think when we're forcing food, it's a very, and trust me, human behavior will not allow, I've never heard, and you have to help me with this research, I've never heard a kid with autism starve themselves. They know how to eat, maybe not the most healthiest, but they will eat because that's just human behavior. It's survival. We're going to eat when we're hungry.
Right.
You know, it's just part of the process. But if you want a healthier eater, you want more fluidity in our kids in what they eat and the diversity of eating, you're going to definitely have to cool down your food. You're going to definitely, and now, things like strawberries, things like that, it's going to be a little harder because when you smell it and taste it, they have two different components. So just understand that some foods are a little bit more complex than others, and you're just going to have to substitute maybe that fruit with another fruit, such as an apple or maybe an orange. You know, maybe not just a strawberry, because it could be a little bit, you know, there's some fruits I just don't eat as human beings. It's okay, I just substitute it with other fruits. So it's not because I have autism or anything, it's just, that's just my interest.
I think giving them the choice for the child as well. Like you said, you have to eat the broccoli, you have to, well, what other vegetables can we give them instead of broccoli?
That's right. So as we know, parents, you're gonna be at home this summer with your kid because they don't have summer school or summer school is out. You can try these strategies to really see if they're gonna be more beneficial to enhancing the quality of life of your kid in this area of eating. And as we continue along in this process, we want you to also know the second secret that I want you guys to be cognizant of. And this one talks about how our kids feel. Our kids at times cannot share with you that they are sick, or they're tired, or they have a headache. And I really want this is very important for this summer as we're seeing the heat increase. We're seeing right now, I want to say, someone just said in Bakersfield, it's 109 degrees today. And if our kids, which I want to say 90 to 75% of our kids are on psychotropic medications. And with these psychotropic medications, they do play a role in headaches. They do play a role in seizures because of the heat, right? And how the heat can overheat them because of the psychotropic medications that they're on. So we want to make sure that you're aware that this area is such an important area, and our kids cannot, especially our nonverbal kids, as you mentioned earlier.
I think one of the key programs, the fundamental programs we have, is trying to teach our kids body parts. But if they're not there yet, how can they tell us what's hurting? Why is it they're in pain?
That's right. So we want the parents to know some areas that are statistically high for our kids. And if you never heard your kid say, I have a headache, but your kid bangs their head or hits themselves, that's a really strong chance that they're really, through their behaviors, communicating that I have a headache. And there's one thing that we've done statistics on. Human beings, there's only one mammal that actually hits themselves. Human beings are not, or no other mammal actually hits themselves, right? So when you hit yourself, I'm thinking to myself, what is that for? You know, because we love ourselves. We don't want to hurt ourselves unless we're already in some type of pain. And when you see athletes or someone banging and swelling, that's to reestablish the proprioceptive input because there's too much in that one area, right? So the proprioceptive input can be hitting other things, hitting so they re-regulate their body to re-regulate that proprioceptive.
Right. So when we do see self-injurious behavior, we want to make sure we're ruling out the medical cause first. It can be they're hitting their head because they have a headache. They're hitting their stomach because there was pain inside. And like you have a really good example of
Yes.
that.
I would exactly this example. I was in a one-on-one with a clinician, and she mentioned to me that this kid is just constantly hitting his stomach, I'm thinking to myself, we don't typically see our kids. We typically see them hit their head, or maybe like, property disrupt, but not hit their stomach, and especially at a rate that was causing major bruising at that time. So I told our clinician that's a really abnormal. I would actually encourage you to take the kid or have the parent take the kid to the doctor because there's probably something wrong. And sure enough, the kid had an emergency intestines because his intestines were clogged. And if, because he was nonverbal, if the parent did not, take him, it could have really created a really, fatal experience. So what we are not knowing is that when we've seen behaviors, hitting, we have to say there's not one mammal, and I say mammals because we are the most sophisticated mammals out there, human beings. So you have to say, okay, what are some non-sophisticated animals like dolphins or whales or other,
Right. We do see the self-injurious behaviors in these other mammal stuff as well when they're in captivity.
in captivity because they're in pain. They're like, get me out of here. I'm out of here, right? Dolphins do it for century because they're in pain, right? We understand, but when we look at it from here, we're just saying because they have autism or they're just wanting to self-injurious. But we're not taking into consideration that when you hit yourself, it's that split second of endorphins that are being released that have that positive sensation.
When I have a headache, I would rub my head, releases some endorphins or something, but it makes it weird. It makes it less, right?
Less, yes. When you do this, it makes it feel a little better. Then when you stop doing it, you're like, oh, it still hurts. So again, we as individuals, but we don't, if I saw Dr. Lee going into his office and banging his head on the desk, I'd be like, something wrong with Dr. Lee, right? And it's not nothing wrong. He just needs an aspirin. And one of the things that I'm not sure if our audience knows professionally, and I think our professionals needs to know this, that 10.3 million individuals are prone to having headaches. And 5% of them are coping with a migraine headache. And these are the things that you have to take. Inadequate hydration. Our kids with autism are not drinking water all the time or having efficiency in their water, right? We already know that, and plus the medication. Diet. We know our kids with autism don't always have. We talked about that in our last segment, right, Dr. Lee? And then our sleep. Yeah, Dr. Lee, like, you hear about that, right?
Yeah. Some of them stay awake till 3 in the morning, wake up at 6 in the morning, so they don't get enough sleep. So that may cause headaches as well. So.
Yeah, so these are things that the research has said, these have just created. So if you have 3 out of these things in your kid, inadequate eating, inadequate headaches, sleeping, and inadequate drinking of water, of keeping hydration, your kid is prone to having a headache. And as a parent, you should be cognizant of these things, because if that's happening, if your kid has these 3 things and they exhibit self-injurious behavior, this could be an area that you never took in consideration because you as a parent or you as a clinician cannot see the headache. We cannot see the internal pain. And that's why it's a secret, because you have to be able to uncover it to be able to see it.
I think a lot of parents aren't aware that some of the kids do have headaches. Just letting them know, hey, look at the numbers here. What you said, 100 million?
10 million, 10.3 million.
So definitely we want to make sure that we're looking into those headaches as maybe possible triggers of some of the behaviors that we're seeing.
Yeah. So again, 10.3 million right here. 15 of these are kids experience 10 headaches and five out of those are coping with migraines. And then we didn't even talk about the stress and the possible visual problems. There's kids that are out there that have visual issues, but their parents can't put glasses on them because they'll break them. They'll break the glasses, or they won't tolerate the glasses on them.
Or even getting them to that doctor's appointment to get them assessed, right? It's like, well, I can't get them to sit down, and we can't get the thing in the doctor's office, things like that.
So these are the little things our kids with autism, and then family history. Is there a family history of headaches? Does the mom or dad or, uncle, grandparent have a history of migraines or headaches? And if that's the case, then there's a really strong chance that your kid is exhibiting with autism. And this is one area that I always ask parents, has your kid ever once told you that they've had a headache? And they always say no. And every kid once a year has at least one headache a year. Everybody, all human beings are gonna have at least one headache a year. And some, they were gonna have multiples, as we talked about with the migraines and the tension and the ongoing. So these are the time and types. The tension headaches, right? Fairly common in kids. Tension headaches can be brought about a variety of emotional and physical stressors. The pain is often described as controlled pressure around the front and the side. So if they hear the bang in the front of their head or hitting the side, that's where tension headaches are coming from, which can be like someone stretched a rubber band around it, and they're just like, it's just tight.
If you wear a hat that's too tight, it's going to cause that same thing.
That's right. And again, these are dulling, aching, and major direction between the tension headaches and migraine, or the distinction is tension headaches typically are not accompanied by nausea or vomiting. So if you see our kids vomiting or being nauseous, that typically is more symptoms of a migraine. So that's a way for parents and professionals to be able to differentiate between the physical or tension headaches and migraines. So just something to make sure you have in your repertoire. Again, migraines, stomach aches, nausea, vomiting, seeing spots, sensitivity to lights. If kids sometimes just want to be in the dark, you turn on the light, they have such hardcore behaviors. Parents just like, hey, he just wants to be left alone. He doesn't like the lights. They're not taking into consideration maybe your kid has a migraine. You know what I'm saying? Has a migraine and they just want to be left alone with the lights out. Yeah, that has a very similar correlation of autism, where they just want to be isolated in the dark. But maybe that's not human behavior though, right? So that's what we're saying. Maybe they're exhibiting that because they're having a migraine and they know.
And if the parents don't know that, we pull them out of the room, get help. You need to be out here socializing, and then that's when we see behaviors, aggression, and things like that. Because I just want to be in my room, without the lights, because I'm dealing with this migraine right now.
That's right. So I think parents, you just want to be able, and professionals, to be able to understand the history and understand your child, because these are strategies. An easy strategy is to ask the parent to go to their pediatrician to see if an aspirin or Tylenol is something that their child can have. And if they can, I know people that take aspirin to protect against a heart attack or a stroke, right? You take one aspirin a day prescribed by your physician, but if you have headaches and the child can't communicate it, but they exhibit, maybe the parent can send them to pediatrician, or just go get them an aspirin if their pediatrician says it's okay, right? We as ABAers, we cannot subscribe to saying, oh, you need a Tylenol, right? We just say, hey, you need to ask your pediatrician if that's something. If they can, we can then say you should give your kid a Tylenol at that time. And strategies, again, I think we're already kind of talking about strategies, right? In a sense of when these headache, aspirins, water. Now, our kids don't like water sometimes, but let's put a little lemon in it, maybe a little fruit in the water. That may allow for them to engage in the water, but just know Maybe it's the smell, right? And so take all these things in, because as a parent, you wear multiple hats. You're not just a parent, you're also a clinician. You're kind of everything. You're sometimes a doctor, sometimes you're a lawyer, because you have to advocate for your kid. So we're trying to make sure that you have all the tools you need to be successful. You know, and that's where we're at. So one of the main things we hear all the time is about the self-injuries. If the kid is hitting yourself somewhere, let's just make sure your kid is not inadvertently in pain, especially because we know statistically that our kids with autism do not come to parents and say, I'm sick. We typically find this out because our kid is a little bit more lethargic, or they're not moving, or they're exhibiting sick behaviors. But they don't really communicate that all the time to us. That's why we as parents have to understand these nuances, and also professionals, so that we don't continuously trigger these behaviors because we're thinking like, oh, because they have autism, that's why they're hitting themselves. Well, no, it's not because of autism. It's because maybe they have a headache, because that's abnormal.
The term in ABA, parsimony. Right? With parsimony, we want to rule out the simplest explanation for the behavior first before we try to explain it more abstract. Right? So the simplest explanation is why he's hitting his head. Can be he has a headache. Versus what is the function he's doing for attention, or he's doing it because he's trying to escape or like that. So we're going to rule out the simplest explanation, and then if that's not it, then we'll look at to do the FDA, things like that. But parsimony is going to be.
And I think that that's one of the 6 sciences that we may not do enough, is parse things out. Is say, okay, let me see why and parse these things out, such as, did he eat today? Did he drink any water? Did he get any sleep? Right? Now, if the parent said he hasn't drank any water, he hasn't eaten, and he hasn't slept, right there, you're probably going to have some type of headache or some type of lethargicness. But typically, when we say that, we just say, okay, we're going to maybe have a bad day. Right? But let's work with them and giving them this, because any human being, if they don't drink, I think they just created a new term called hangry. Betty White, right? I've never heard that growing up. Well, all of a sudden, you need your Snicker bar because now you're hangry. And it's true. People do get hangry. Look at our producer over there. Right, she's like, you put me on past my lunch break. So I think ultimately that's not true. Let's not put that on tape. She getting her lunch break. So I think ultimately this is where we're at, parents and professionals. And before we go on to our 2 other secrets that we have, do you guys have any questions on any of the first 2 secrets, headaches, or any ideas or thoughts you may have with eating?
There was a question about eating. You guys kind of touched base on it, but they had mentioned, how do we get consumers that are older to expand their taste buds?
Yeah, so I think in order to expand their taste buds, they have to first be introduced to new foods, but also too, you always want to pair these good foods with reinforcer. I know I tried a lot of vegetables in my growing up, because I knew if I didn't have my vegetables, I couldn't have my ice cream or cookies afterwards. So it's really pairing things. We do that all the time as just human behaviors, is pair something we know the kid likes and say it's almost like the pre-mac.
It is.
Yeah. So then they call it the grandma rule, right? So it's like first then and then this. So it's really making sure first off you have a reinforcer, and then you start to pair some new foods with, once you try this new food, but again, understanding that you want to bring the temperature down. You want to have it at room temperature so that you don't have any aromas going off of it. Also, too, another trick is some room temperature foods, such as grapes or strawberries, you put them in the freezer. The freezer actually freezes the actual secondary taste that they're going to get in the when they're actually tasting it on the second end. So with fruits, you can put them in the freezer, and that's going to actually help reduce But then with hot foods, you actually want to put it in the refrigerator to minimize it. So these are techniques. If you understand just how food chemistry works, you understand that certain smells and different things could be subsidized by freezing it and or cooling it down. So hopefully that can help with that particular question. Any other questions that we may have out there related to food and or headaches? All right, really great question. I think ultimately we really want to continuously enhance the toolbox. It's really about a toolbox enhancement. The more tools you have, the better builder you are. And that's what we're doing, is we're rebuilding these neurons that's in the brain. We're restructuring it. And the more techniques and tools we have, the better results that we'll probably be able to come, because one tool is not going to fix everything. And if you only have one strategy or one approach, you're not going to be as successful. So if it's a screw and I only have a hammer and I try to hammer it in, I'm not going to be successful. I need a Phillips, or I need a flathead, or I may just need a wrench.
We always say our strategies, our plans always have to be individualized. So if one strategy works for this child, we could use it for every child. And make sure that it's for this particular child, this strategy works.
Yeah, and to add on that, you may be able to use the same strategy, but it has to be modified for that child. So it's not that you have to use a brand new thing. It's just you want to modify it. Just like if me and Dr. Lee is going to wear exactly the same outfit, but I'm a 32, he a 36 in waist. You know what I'm saying? So that's the modification that we're talking about, right, Dr. Lee? So again, guys, it's really understanding how to have a smorgasbord of strategies that's going to fit for that child. And as clinicians, I can't go into every family with just one approach. You have to be, you got to be multifaceted. And that's what we're trying to make our audience and our clinicians out there multifaceted. And our next one, this is the time, if you're going to do it, potty training, you got all the time in the world. And I'll be honest, this is the differentiation between having your kid in severe, in school, into severe to handicap. They have the different. You have resource class, and you have mild to moderate. Then you have moderate to severe, and then you have severe to profoundly handicapped. But the last two, you're going to have a classroom that actually has a bathroom in it, because our kids are not potty trained. And if your kid is not potty trained, then they have to be in those two classrooms, because the mild to moderate class does not have a classroom that can help build on potty training. So we really emphasize at our organization to make sure, I don't believe there's any kids, very low percent of kids at our organization that are still not potty trained. It's really one of the other important pieces to autonomy.
So in terms of the strategy, the typical strategy in terms of potty training, we give the child lots of salty foods, give them lots of liquids to drink, take them to the bathroom, and they eliminate in the toilet, we throw it apart. A lot of times that does work, but sometimes it doesn't work. So we're going to be talking about when it doesn't work, what else can we do?
That's right. And the reason why it may not work, I think it's important for us to know the history. You have to think, for all their lives, from very beginning, they were able to pee in this diaper. And it was okay to pee. They can be playing, they can be crying, they can be doing whatever, and they can pee instantly, or void, eliminate and void without any issues.
Right, so we can condition, like this toilet is my bathroom. Right? So how do we
reshape? So again, it's reshaping the brain to say, we no longer, it's okay for you just to go into here. It's now this other area. And that's hard for kids. And it's hard for parents.
Like, why do you have to stop playing? I don't want to go to the bathroom. I still have to stop playing.
Exactly. And as adults, I'm pretty sure if we were wearing diapers, we'd probably do the same, especially at the poker table. Especially in Vegas. I don't want to leave. I'm on a roll. I'm on fire right now, right? Or during some type of fun event. You just be like, I'm just gonna pee right here. Right? But we could do that if we're in a diaper. But our brains say we're not in a diaper and it's just gonna not be the most appropriate thing. So we're gonna go to the restroom. Right? That's our human behavior being shaped. And that's what we have to continuously do for our kids, is to know that it's been shaped. But for parents, it's the hardest thing, because the number one thing that parents do not want is pee or poop on their couch or on their floor. So we got strategies for that.
So the first thing
Get rid of
that diaper, right?
Yeah, yes, that's true. I thought you were going to tell them the secret. Sorry, Dr. Lee, but you're right. The first thing is to
get rid of that diaper.
That's right. And in order to get rid of that diaper, parents think it's scary, because once they put the underwear on, the kid is going to pee and it's going to go everywhere. So we're going to talk about that, because again, what the child has learned from birth, it's going to be hard for that child to learn something different. And then the readiness of it. How do we know the child is truly ready for bathroom?
I think if they're wet and they're not feeling the discomforts, they're probably not ready. But if they're like, ew, well, this icky thing here, that's when we know they're ready.
That's right. And we also know when they're not ready when they hide and go to the bathroom. That's when they're vigilant of when they go. So they'll go around the couch, they'll go out the arena, and then you'll just see them is kind of hunched over somewhere in a paused position. They frozen. And they not Olaf either. They're just like this. And they're smiling though. That's the crazy thing. They're just smiling. But that's where the readiness comes in. But then the readiness also comes in if the parent can be consistent. Because maybe the parent is not ready because their lifestyle is too much at this moment. And it's too hard for them to stop, because consistency is literally the number one thing. Number one for parents and professionals, to be consistent. But let's talk about some of these things, which is strategies. Let's go. I know you got a number of good strategies, Dr.
So the
Lee.
parent is saying, oh, if I take off the diaper and I put in my underwear, there's going to be pee and poop all over my house. I do not want that. So what can we do to help with that?
What can we do, Dr. Lee?
We could still put the diaper over the underwear.
Oh.
Okay. So they're still in the underwear. They're still going to feel that sensation of the wetness,
The ickiness and all that.
but the diaper is going to be over to protect
The family.
The family.
So again, genius strategy. Why? Because you are helping the child, but you're also helping the parent. You're helping the child because there is a stark difference. I'm talking about a night and day difference of when you pee in an underwear versus you pee in a diaper. The diaper is absorbed and to make you feel comfortable, still feel dry. That's what it's designed to do. Underwears are not designed to absorb. They're not. And I don't know, producer, anyone here ever had an accident on themselves that they can remember when they were 5 or 6? Maybe when they're in college or something. Right? If somebody's going to be real, you'll know how uncomfortable that is. You know, I've probably been in a situation, keeping it 100 with the audience. As human behavior, we probably had an accident thinking we're going to get to the bathroom and we don't. And then it goes onto our underwear and we just feel gross the whole day. Or we go home and we change, right? So we are trying to get the kid to feel that sensation. That is also helping with readiness to say, I don't want to feel this way. I want to eliminate this or avoid this by going into the bathroom, right? And for the parent who says, hey, I don't want this pee or poop in this underwear to drip out, leak everywhere, you got the diaper to cover it now for you, right? So genius. It doesn't go on the couch. It doesn't go there.
Still having the same sensation.
You're having the same sensation. Now, technically, that's the second resort. Parents, we want you to be on a scatter plot, which is another ABA concept in term a scatter plot, to be able to know when your child is going to the bathroom. If you can identify when your child is literally going in the diaper, you can eliminate that diaper and have them in the bathroom more often.
So if we can take the data, find a pattern, and say every day at noon, I'm seeing that Johnny's having an accident. At 11:45, let's take him to the bathroom.
That's right. And in Lock and Loaded, we're going to expose Dr. Lee. Are you regular, or do you go every, for number 2? Are you kind of consistent? Because you need to have a consistency, right?
Depends on what I'm eating.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Dr. Lee be like, oh, I had pokey, right? Or I had ice cream. Oh my God, he's running. I'm talking about a track star, right? But guess what? He doesn't make it all the time, guys. I'm just joking. That's part of Lock and Loaded that I just wanted to mess with you guys off, because this is what happens to our kids. They'll have their spontaneousness of going to the bathroom. That's going to happen. But if we can catch them with the regular approach, them going spontaneously, they will know exactly where to go, exactly what to do. But they have to have some type of consistency to build on that. And what we typically find, once a child knows that this is the place to go, it's what we consider irreversible behavior. You can't erase it. It doesn't go away. They will always go to the bathroom.
And once they've learned that behavior and get reinforced when they provide illumination, that's where I go.
That's right. And that's why I say, parents, this is a perfect time, because you don't have the teachers or other professionals. You just have them at home, him or her. And if you want to potty train, this is a great opportunity to utilize these ABA strategies and be able to see how successful you will be. But the other strategy we haven't given them yet is you have to make sure that whatever the child likes, this always works also too, is paired with this. When they go number 1 or 2 in that toilet, they get that cupcake or they get that big reward. Mm-hmm. And they know that they only get that big reward when they do. Another strategy is also video modeling. There's some really great videos out there. I want to say Sesame Street, Elmo, some really great visual modeling videos that can help the child see the differentiation as well.
I've also seen little targets that you can put in the water in the toilet to help them illuminate, make it a game, make it fun for them.
Oh, that's awesome. So these are all strategies to make it fun, but in order to get to this area that we're referring to, you have to rebuild. You have to, again, let me just put it right here, you have to reshape the brain. You have to make sure what the child has learned from birth is something now new, because they learn that this is birth.
It's 0 to 3, 4 years. If you've done something for 4 years, it's going to be very hard to change that.
Even 3, you have to think, that's what? 365 times 3? That's over 10,000 days or 1,000 days or whatnot, right? So this is what we're saying. That's a lot of days to now all of a sudden you think 1 week is going to change this potty training or so. It's going to take some time because of how many, days that they've known that this is my go-to when it comes down to bathroom. And I know and these young parents know, these kids go through diapers. And diapers can be extremely expensive, right? So this is what we're saying, to eliminate all these. This is what we are helping parents. And we've been extremely successful with potty training. I remember we had a clinician back in the day that she was able to potty train 6 or 7 individuals utilizing this technique. And we see it all the time. And this is ranging from 13 to 22 years of age. We were able to potty train a 22-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old. You typically don't see because it's so embedded, but no, reshaping of the brain happens with reinforcement because they want to go to the bathroom too. So that's the piece that is so important. Statistically, we're seeing really great results when we're utilizing. That's what we're sharing some of these secrets with you.
I think the consistency part of it. I think a lot of times a parent would say, well, it won't go, I'll hold it. And so I have to put on the diaper and then it'll go. Right?
Well, the reason why he's trained that I have to go when I have the diaper. So some kids will hold it all day. For us. So again, and the strategy is put them on the toilet, put the underwear on, put the diaper over it, and then have a regular schedule with your scatter plot. Know when to take them, have your reinforcers integrated into the mix, and most importantly, let's be positive. You have to be positive in this. It's really so vitally important that positivity is incorporated into here. If you're not ready for it, parent, you're gonna get frustrated, and it's not the child's fault. So let's not put this onto the child as if it's their fault. They're still learning, and they've had so many days, as I just articulated, and years under their belt that they did it this way. So positivity is also going to really change the behavior so much. You know, and then one of my favorites, Dr. Lee, my other secrets. This is our fourth secret, and these are all things that parents should know during the summertime.
And the last one we're going to be talking about is our circadian rhythm.
Circadian rhythm. What's that?
This is our.
Is that my dance moves?
No, this is your internal clock, internal biological clock. It regulates when you sleep, when you wake up, when you eat. So your body's letting you know, okay, this is when I should be awake. But if there's some changes to it, it messes that up.
Yes.
So it's daylight savings time, that can mess it up as well.
Daylight saving time for sure, because our kids think that they wake up at this time, and the clock says, no, you're supposed to wake up an hour later or hour earlier, right? And then also, the sun will go down. I've seen kids say, why are you still in session? You're supposed to be gone because the sun is down now, it's dark. So a lot of our kids do use environment and just the day to measure when they should eat, when they should go to sleep, when they should take a shower. But I want to say, we all about statistical numbers here, 80%, maybe even higher. I don't know if a lot of our kids know how to tell time and use time as a mechanism to control their day. They use the environment, their circadian rhythm, because they learned it from, from everything. The kids, I'll be honest, our kids with autism don't know when they look at the clock that it's 5 minutes left to recess. No, their bodies start to say, hey, we're closer to recess, because they start to learn that every day at this time, I eat and then go outside to go to the bathroom and or run.
It's like, I'm feeling hungry, so it must be around evening right now.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But if we change the time, it's only 11 o'clock, because we've either put the clocks back or forward, that's going to mess up the regulation.
That's right. But we also want you to know during this summer, there's another mechanism that a lot of parents and professionals may not know. That is, our kids are trained to know when it's lunchtime, when it's break time at school. Organically, they go to school 7-8 months out of the year, 8 to 9 months, right, or so out of the year. And every day it's the same day, very routine based. And every day they may have lunch or breakfast right when they get to school. Right when they get to school, they may have a little breakfast. Right? Then they start their, curriculum. Then they have a break. Right? In that break, they're going outside running off all that built up energy that they had for the first few hours of that school day. Then they come back after that break, which is about a 15 to 20 minute break, right? They go for another 2 hours, and then it's lunch. That's the big one. Kids look forward to the lunch break. And that's when they can run, they can play on the apparatuses, they can just feel free and eat their food, whatever it's packed for them or whatnot, right? But then in summertime, Dr. Lee, what happens?
There's no structure. We don't have that. Okay, this is lunchtime, or this is recess time. So what happens?
Behaviors. The kids are running them literally amok. And their parents are like, what is going on? And they're not understanding. And they're thinking these services are not working, nothing's working, but they're not understanding their child. And understanding that if they set up a very similar routine to say, okay, we may not be able to go to a park, but we can go outside for a walk. We can walk the dog or just go for a walk. Do something at 12 o'clock to 1 to get that energy out. Because if you don't get the energy out at that time, they're going to run around the house and they're going to do behaviors to get that energy out. And the kid himself is not going to know it. It just happens organically. Just like every morning I wake up at the same time organically without an alarm clock.
But now that there's no school, the kids may be going to bed later. Instead of going to bed at 9 or 10, they're going to bed at 11, 12, and they're waking up at 9 or 10 instead of 6 or 7.
And that's true. But when they get up, they still have to know, I'm going to eat my breakfast. I'm going to do this for a little bit. I'm going to go outside, come back, do this for a little bit. But I also need that mid to midday break to go do something. And if that doesn't occur, then our kids are a little discombobulated. And then the whole environment, and that's for even neurotypical kids. This has really nothing to do per se with individuals with autism, but it's a little bit more impactful for our kids because they rely more on these routines. You know, and if they don't have these routines embedded in their day, that's why we try to help them and parents with that. That's why acclimating back to school for some kids are better because they love that routine. And that's why for some kids it's hard because they lost that routine for so many months. And if parents and professionals, which I know at our organization, we talk about this, right? At Behavioral Autism Therapy.
I think with our sessions, sometimes during the summer, the ones that are having sessions late from 5 to 8 p.m., we usually change it to the morning time. So now they're more alert, more awake. They're used to having activities at school, things like that. So when we change it to the morning, we're seeing more success with the programs when they're into that same routine.
And that's all right. I mean, what we're trying to do is if you're not going to get this educational time here and it's missed, let's replace it here because we know circadianly, with the circadian rhythm, we learn in the morning time. We're more alert. That's human behavior. There's not a lot of human beings that function that well when they have a night shift. People function really well 9 to 5s, 9 to 5s, right? Because school was a 9 to 5 almost. And they just built on that time. Kindergarten, maybe you went from 9 to 11 or 9 to 12. First grade, now you go from 9 to 2. Middle school, now 9 to 3. High school, shoot, you could be there all day. ASB and all the extracurricular. But that's like a work day, right? So it's like these are things that our society, behaviorally and organically, has shaped. But if we're not aware and attuned to why these entities are in play and how they work, then we're going to be behavioral off. There's a lot of neurotypicals that are off, and they don't understand why.
Right. So if the child's used to being outside, burning off that energy at 11 o'clock, over here during the summer, there's no school structure, where are they going to burn that energy off? If we're saying, you stay inside, mom's busy right now, not giving them the chance to go outside.
Yeah. What they may do is go randomly and go push their brother or sister, and then they're gonna go run because they're gonna want to get chased. And they're gonna exhibit behavior so that someone can chase them or exhibit some type of physical interaction to get that energy out. We're seeing that not in the previous summers because I think our clinical team is aware, but we now want to make sure parents and other professionals around the way are aware too. Right? Because we're here for the betterment, not just for one. ABA is not just for one organization, it's for everybody. It's just that maybe one organization may have more sophistication, quote unquote, than others, but ABA is across the board. And I really want to make sure that in lock and loaded, that we do what we love. We love ABA. Right?
Definitely. And again, ABA is not just for children with autism. You can use it with your own children, significant others, everything.
Say that louder. You said significant others?
Yes.
Okay. How can you use that? That may be another episode. How to use ABA on your significant other.
If they're doing things that you may not.
So I think in Lock and Loaded, that's what we're trying to do, guys. We're trying to really make sure that we can provide our audience with a smorgasbord of different things. The last 2 weeks we had advocates, we had parents. This week we wanted just to re-establish the clinical sophistication that we have and make sure that you have these things in your repertoire. And again, we're not saying that this is the only strategy or the main strategy. We're giving you things that we have found to work, things that are new and may not be as talked about as much. And that's what we want to make sure that you guys are aware of, because it takes a village. That's our mantra. It takes a village to really continuously enhance the quality of lives for our kids with autism. And I'm so excited because as I sit here and drink my special needs coffee, that's motivation, because we know there's kids now with autism working, coming to work every day, being able to make coffee, exchange money, socially interact, and be able to do these things because of professionals like yourself and parents like you guys out there and other professionals. We're all doing it. It's not one agency, it's all of us together. It's not one parent, it's all of us. And if we can continuously be one unit for our world, for this great America that we live in, I tell you, we're going to continuously do things that have been unheard. Because I know when we started this industry, Dr. Lee, parents were saying when I had the diagnosis, I was hopeless because I didn't know what was that. And that was 20 years ago. Now, parents are taking it like, hey, let's go. What do we need to do? Do I need OT? Do I need speech? Where do I need to go? Let's get here. And they're willing because there's a lot more information, a lot more success. And I believe there's clinicians and parents that have learned and that are willing to get back, to this world to continuously enhance. And as I mentioned with Special Needs Coffee, all these kids experienced this and had to overcome and still may do it, but they're working functionally without they do it on their own, right? So
independence, we're seeing that they're contributing. So, and then their sense of worth, the pride is also what we're seeing. We're seeing kids coming in and it's like, yeah, I'm doing this, I'm using my money that I made to do this, so.
I think it's their sense of who they are. I think you nailed it with that, Dr. Lee. It's just, all of these things that we're talking about is to continue to build on our kids, build on our community, and the more tools, as we articulated, that you have, the more success that we're gonna have. So again, I always say, we started Lock and Loaded because there's not a lot of podcasts out talking about things with kids with autism or with families and or professionals. There's just not a lot out there. So there are some out there, but there's not a lot. We're not saying we're the only one, but we're saying we want to continuously add to the platform so that our community in the Inland Empire, the Los Angeles, California, the United States of America, they have really great information, dialogues. I see someone saying something out there, producer, you're just looking real hard.
No, somebody just joined. That's it.
Okay. What's your thoughts, Dr. Lee?
No, I think we want to continue to share our knowledge, our strategies with the community. A lot of times when you're just doing your research, doing some things like, oh, I never thought about that. Right? So I never thought about this. So we just want to make sure we're continuing to share what we know for everyone out there.
That's right. Just keep on adding to those neurons. And once you have neurons, those are ideas, you can develop so much more through that. So again, the strategies that we say is make sure you understand routinely and how to keep your kid on a routine that's similar to their pre-existing one. We understand that they're at home and they may have a Saturday and Sunday routine, but in the summertime they want to maintain a certain routine so that they can be able to transition back to school and continue their growth without too many hardships. So that's kind of why we have shared 4 different secrets, 4 different facets, right? We first started off with the picky eating, right? And giving you strategies there. The next one, we started off with the headaches because we may see kids exhibiting self-injurious behaviors and helping you understand where that could possibly be coming from. And then we helped you with potty training to understand if your kid is not potty trained, summertime is the perfect time to work on that with your ABA team or just your team in general. And then last but not least, understanding that there is a clock that your kid lives off of, and that it may not be your clock, and that we want you to understand that these routines and how they've been embedded into your child through school and their everyday life, and to learn about it so that you can be able to help them through that when their bodies are saying, why don't I feel a little bit like more energetic right now, right? And it's because they're, for every day, for 8 months at this school, we went to lunch and I ran around and I got all my energy out, so this is where you guys need to understand, and the more we understand, the better we can help our kids, help our community, and that's professional. So Dr. Lee, you have a password. We
Yes.
talked also too about some key terms. I think we said, I think you brought up the 6 sciences.
Right, so we talked about parsimony.
I was gonna say that could be which of our 6 science did we talk about, but you answered it. You answered it for the team. I was gonna say, let's bring up another one. On which data collecting procedure that we said.
Right, for the toilet training, the potty training, we talked about using a data collection system where you'd have to keep track of the pattern, and what was that called?
That's right. Now, if you can share that with us in your text, that would be your CE units for today's with that answer. That is, again, understanding our industry, understanding which modalities to use in these circumstances to get to the best outcomes.
And then if you're a BCBA out there, you're going to need to send me your certification number. If our producer can write my email address in there, they'll send it to me.
All right, so again, we're going to be doing every of our lock and loaders are going to be with CE units. You guys can come in, but they're for everyone. Why? Because it's a team thing. Parents, professionals, the community, we're all in this together. So we want everyone to be able to benefit from this hour or so that you spend with us today. We enjoy having these conversations and dialogue with you guys. Next week, we have a special guest. We're going to bring another guest in. We're going to try to do strategies and ethical things. Plus, we want to bring in guests. And next week, we're going to bring in a police officer. I still believe there's conversation that needs to continuously be had on how the law enforcement industry works really well and what they do to keep our kids with autism safe. We did have the situation where there was a young gentleman that got shot. And their dialogue cannot just happen because of just that. The dialogue needs to continuously happen, not just reactively. It needs to happen proactively. So lock and loaded, we want to proactively bring these things up so that there's never a doubt that the police officer in the police arena supports our kids with autism, because sometimes they're doubted when these type of unfortunate situations occur. Now they're questioned because that's the only time we hear about what they may do or what they may not do, right? So we want you to know that police officers all the time are working daily to make the streets safe for our kids with autism and special needs. So next week we're going to have a police officer out and lock and loaded to talk about the continual safety. And that's because there's much more kids out there in the summertime. Our kids are going to be integrated a little bit more, and they may have more behaviors, right? And people may call the cops on them because they're not used to seeing that. But we don't want our kids to shy away or feel fearful. We need our kids to be acclimated and involved just like everyone else. And I just want to end on this to say great job to Dr. Lee. Great job to our clinical team on our summer extravaganza Today we had a fishing lessons and kids were out there. I saw some really good casting and all of that, how to bait, how to hook, all these things that I think is important for our kids. We had hiking, and
We're still doing the Topgolf league, so the kids are improving. We're seeing every week they're improving and making great contact with balls now. Less trying to fall off the cliff. That was the first week was pretty scary, but now we're seeing much better compliance. So
yeah, and I love it because golfing is a beautiful thing. And if we can get our kids with autism to be out there to enjoy it with their parents, their loved ones, their friends, hiking. We had game night, which was really great. I really enjoyed that. So this summer is really about building, guys. Lock and Loaded. It's here for you. So if there is a topic that you guys may want to hear, let it be known. And we're going to research it, our experience, and then kind of talk about it with you so that we can, build on it. So before we leave, we want to see if there's any questions or thoughts. We want to thank our producer today for helping us make this happen. Is there any questions or thoughts that any of you guys have before? Because again, this is for you guys. Anything out there? I know there's one person out there that wanted to ask a question because they were asking it prior. Sarah, she was like, what question should I ask? I was like, that's a question.
Oh, that's most of the questions I've been asking you guys is from Sarah.
It's for Sarah? Okay.
I mean, another question is how can we sign up for socials? I commented and told them you could sign up by calling our office, but that was also Sarah.
Okay. Okay. All right. So again, if you have a social, understand that you also have to have social skills hours, or you may want to incorporate it within your program so that you're developing on the goals. So those are also important entities. Talk to your supervisor. If you're not with behavioral autism therapies, but you do have social skills and would like to participate, as Jay had mentioned in the chat, just call our office and they'll be able to ask you for all of the improvement information so that you would be able to sign up. And I think the people from the outside, it's always great to meet new friends and incorporate. So social skills is definitely open. So let us know. We have 3 more weeks of our summer extravaganza. And like I said, it's been really amazing during this time.
you forgot about camping.
Oh, that's right, our camping social. Our camping instructor last week actually made fire. And I thought that was really cool to actually see fire made by just rocks and the wick. So it's like we're teaching our kids because, again, parents want to take their kids camping. Parents want to take their kids fishing. Parents may want to take their kids to these activities, but they're a little nervous because they don't know if their kid will exhibit behaviors or what. But we're giving them that confidence and we're building the kids' experiences, and they're getting the chance to meet other cool kids. And that's really making it really fun as well. So I think it's really great. Again, what is this show?
Lock
and Loaded. Thank you for being here today with us, and we'll see you next Friday. Have a great weekend, everyone.